Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. It's such an honor to have you on board as part of our event today, the International Women's Day celebration, where we have a fully packed agenda discussing, of course, women's issues. Well, it's an annual celebration, and we always reflect on the strides we have made as women. Globally, we reflect on uh, how far we've come since, of course, the days of the Beijing agreements across the globe, where we as women decided that we want to take the discussion of women progress forward. So it is in these years and in these months that we reflect on the strides that we've made, but also reflect on what is still the gap in the women's gender, in the women's agenda. So 30 years ago, yes, we all sat and had a Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which was a blueprint for women and girls worldwide that transformed women's rights across several dimensions. Despite these worthy objectives, the World Economic Forum estimated that it will still take us 134 years to reach gender parity. Please reflect on that. It will take us until 2158. This is beyond your generation and the next generation for us to actually realize gender parity. Of course, it's not all doom and gloom. We've had major strides. In Africa, we've had a number of female presidents coming forward. So today is really about celebration. It's reflecting and recognizing all those women who have gone before us, because it is because of them that we are where we are. It is to also ponder with concern on also the rate of acceleration. But as women, we are nurturers, we are solution providers. It's also to reflect at what we can do better as women to make sure that we achieve the accelerated progress. So tonight, we have a fully packed agenda. But before we start, I'd like to hand over to Asamani, the MD of PMI Sub-Saharan Africa, to welcome us and to give us a few reflections from his perspective. Over to you, Judge.
Thank you very much, Pumza. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, George.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So good evening,
yes, we can.
everyone.
Yes, we can, George.
Absolutely. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. So research shows a few things. Pumza's just mentioned a couple. First of all, women in project management earn less than men in every region that we've surveyed. Women are less likely to hold a project management certification. And so this limits career progression. And then women often struggle to gain visibility and executive sponsorship, making leadership roles even harder to attain. So first of all, I just want to say that it's an honor to be here today. I want to thank everyone for attending. And also, thank you for the opportunity to open this important conversation. I know I'm just a man opening a conversation about women's advancement, but it's simple. This is about gender equality. It's not just a women's issue. It's a social issue. It's an economic issue. It's a leadership issue, and it's an opportunity that affects all of us. And yes, it is an opportunity. Also, progress is not the responsibility of women alone or men alone. It must be the work of all of us, women and men together, championing change, challenging bias, and ensuring that opportunity is not determined by gender, but by talent, ambition, and capability. So I'm here to speak not for women, but to stand with women. I'm here because I believe in the importance of this conversation, and because true progress in any field, including project management, it happens when men become allies in breaking barriers and opening doors and accelerating action towards gender equality. So let me begin by saying this. Today is not just about celebrating women. Of course, in addition to the celebration, going beyond the celebration, it's important that we commit to action. And this year's theme, Accelerate Action, calls for moving beyond conversations and taking tangible steps towards gender equality. Whilst the progress has been made, as Pumza mentioned, we know that the change is not happening fast enough. International Women's Day was first held in 1911, more than 100 years ago. And here we are. Back then, the fight was around basic rights, the right to work, the right to vote, the right to education and training, the right to hold public office, to end discrimination. Today, the struggle has evolved, but it's still not disappeared. Now, today, the fight is around equal pay, representation and leadership, and the elimination of systematic barriers that continue to hold women back. The battles look different, but it's still a battle. The fight for equality is not over yet, and we think it's too slow. It's obviously too slow. And if history has taught us anything, it's that change does not happen by waiting. We have to accelerate action. And the numbers tell us that at the current pace, achieving gender parity could take another century, and that's way too long. In Africa, gender disparities remain particularly stark in the workplace. The labor force participation rate for women in Africa is significantly lower than that of men. And in project management, actually, the statistics are even more concerning. Men outnumber women by a ratio of 3-to-1. Whilst women are obviously a critical part of the workforce, and especially when you look at even the population split between men and women. The irony is that actually we're in an area of unprecedented demand for project management talent. Our own research shows that the global economy is going to need 25 million new project managers or project professionals by 2030. So already we have a deficit of project managers, and going forward, we'll have even more of a deficit of project managers globally, including here in Africa. And globally, really, Africa is at the center of the shift. When you look at rapid infrastructure growth, digital transformation, industrialization of projects, the demand for skilled project managers is actually immense. But if women continue to be underrepresented in this profession, we risk missing out on a massive opportunity to shape Africa's future with the full potential that all our people have, men and women together, let alone our role on the global stage. So we can't afford to leave half of the population behind. As I said earlier, women in project management earn less than men. Women are less likely to hold certifications, and so that impacts career progression. And then women struggle a lot of the times to get the visibility and executive sponsorship. But this is the thing. Something happens when women lead. When women lead, projects perform better. When women lead, organizations thrive. When women lead, industries innovate faster. The pulse of the profession, that's the global PMI study, shows that 88% of professionals agree that diverse teams create more value. And it's not just PMI saying this, you will find global research backing this up. So this is why gender diversity should be seen as an essential strategy for business success, even if you're not looking at just the social and human element alone. So during this evening, we're going to hear from trailblazing women that we're fortunate to have on the call. They've all navigated challenges, they've led groundbreaking projects, and in many ways shaped the future of project management. Their journeys remind us that whilst progress takes time, it doesn't have to take forever, and it shouldn't take forever. Thank you and welcome to the PMI International Women's Day webinar, Project Her, a commitment to harnessing, elevating, and redefining her, the role of women in leadership and project management. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, George, for that remarkable start to today's procession. Following George's conversation is going to be Cynthia. Cynthia has an elaborate CV. She is coming as a senior advisor of Africa Regional Programming for the United Nations Global Compact. She will provide us with a perspective from the Global Compact on what decisions and what targets have been set for taking the progress forward. Cynthia, without further ado, let me hand over to you.
Thank you, Phumza. Let me first start by thanking PMI for putting this webinar together. I think that it is so important for us to continue to celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a Black African woman, DEI for me is not just an acronym. It represents humanity, and I celebrate it in all its forms. Thank you to George, my brother George, and your wonderful team for inviting me to give this address. And I think I'll probably repeat a lot of the things you said, George, but thank you so much for having me come. And speaking about gender equality for me is always a pleasure, whether it is to two people in my living room or to a platform such as this. I never miss an opportunity to share, to learn, and to promote. And like you, I'm really looking forward to listening to the phenomenal women leaders who will lead us in this webinar, to learn from them, be inspired by their journeys and their experiences. So, I mean, what are we really going to discuss today? We are going to be discussing how, we harness opportunities in project management, but also more broadly, how do we elevate women in leadership? How do we redefine success in this increasingly changing world? We are, of course, almost at the end of Women's History Month. And we celebrated International Women's Day merely a few days ago. And as George mentioned, the theme this year is Accelerate Action. How do we move from talking to action? And with the time I have with you today, that's really what I want to lean into. Of course, we can never really start a conversation like this without context. And invariably, that means data. So where are we? And we've heard it from Phumza, we've heard it from George. And the data is shocking. Every June, I wait in anticipation for the World Economic Forum to release the annual Global Gender Gap Report. And every year, for at least the past 10 years, I have to admit, I am still shocked by the starkness of the figures and the data presented. Of course, we have said full parity for women remains 134 years away. That is apparently 5 generations away. I can't fathom it. And if we drill down and look at the global labor force, participation rate for women is under 47% compared to 72% of men, according to the ILO. So what about project management? George just spoke to that. The gender disparity is even more pronounced, right? We have men outnumbering women 3-1. And even though, as George also mentioned, this underrepresentation persists despite this growing demand for project managers, for all of you potentially 25 new roles by 2030. So it really, it is baffling. So how do we harness these opportunities in project management? How do we elevate women in leadership more broadly? How do we redefine success in this changing world? I would argue that it starts with us. Surely it has to start with us, all of us, and in leaving the stereotypes behind and reimagining the possibilities. As it's true of many women, my career has been one of reinvention, one of agility, and one of adaptability, which I believe really is a superpower professionally that only we women are blessed with, I might add. I'm a recovering lawyer, but a few years into my career, I did make a shift for a few years. I went into project management. It was a growing field in the UK at the time. And I worked for a global company with the benefit of a large and dedicated PMO. But our numbers were not 3-1. They were more like 20-1. And now you fast forward 20 years, and yes, the numbers have shifted. They have improved. But have the stereotypes? Are we actively promoting, project management as a discipline that is for all, or is it still perceived as a man's job? I would like you to hold on to that thought. This leads me to the other thing around stereotyping as well. It's the lack of role models. You cannot be what you cannot see or you do not see. I'm sure we've all heard that, especially as women. We've probably said it a number of times. And this is true in many respects, from the number of women in project management to the number of women in leadership roles. Within our organizations, are we putting in place strategies? And I'm not talking about policies that sit in a folder in a SharePoint site somewhere. I'm talking about active strategies to recruit a more inclusive and diverse workforce. Are we setting targets on recruiting more women? And let me speak about targets. I love targets. In the gender equality world, we love targets. I know many companies who will proudly tell you that they have 30% women in leadership roles, or that they have 30% women in their workforce. Frankly, I am no longer excited by those numbers. For me, it lacks ambition. We can have parity at all levels of the workforce and leadership if we put our minds to it. There are clear pathways to this, clear strategies that we will speak about in the space. Why are some sectors traditionally heavier in one gender than another? For example, more women in nursing, more men in engineering. That is because of stereotype. It is because we will say women are more nurturing, men more able to think in terms of that sort of technical ability. But we know that's not necessarily the case. And we know we can change it through intention and action. But we need to be actively and consistently addressing the potential barriers. And the barriers are well known. The potential barriers to women entering any particular sector. And this is even more important, and staying long enough to climb up that ladder. So what are some of these opportunities? COVID showed us a lot, but it also brought us some tools. I'm sure most of us in our entities now have flexible working arrangements. Years ago, that wasn't even a possibility. It wasn't a conversation. There was talk about it not being effective in terms of work. We now know that's not the case. Family-friendly policies, inclusive workplaces, safe workplaces, mentorship schemes that allow women and sections of the company that are not have as much access to be able to have access. Equal pay for work of equal value. And these policies benefit everyone, not just women. This has been proven. So as we talk about accelerating action, I want to also touch on something George mentioned, allyship. Allyship is a very important component in us accelerating. And when I say allyship, I am referring specifically to male allyship. A few years ago, if I had said this phrase, there would have been a lot of, furrowed brows, thinking, what does that mean? But I'm happy to say that today that is less. But let me still speak to what it is. Male allies are male allies are men who are actively working with women to promote gender equality and gender equity, both in their personal lives, in their workplace. And even more importantly, when it comes to the workplace, are men who are actively supporting and advocating for women's rights, their equality, they're challenging the patriarchal norms, and they're promoting a more inclusive and equitable society. And so what does that look like in a practical term? Male leaders actively supporting women's advancement and promoting equal representation and leadership and saying, I want to see my board have 50% women, and this is the plan on how we're going to do that. It's championing the gender equality business case. The business case is clear. Entities with more diverse workforce, diverse boards, women in leadership perform better. It's just the case. And yet we are still 134 years away from parity. So we need to champion this. It can't just be something that we say in our meetings or in these sort of get-togethers. We need to champion this. And this is where our male allies can do that. Advocating for and implementing policies that promote gender equality, of course. But I think also as male allies, you need to reflect. You need self-reflection. You need to challenge your own biases. And most importantly, I think you need to listen and you need to learn. I mean, I could go on, but I am mindful of the fact that I too want to hear the wonderful panel. So let me just conclude with a few reflections on redefining success in a changing world. Success is such a subjective thing. And in my view, it's not a static thing. Personally, my success has changed over the years. And for me, includes not just my professional achievements, but my ability to have work-life balance, which gives me time to indulge in the various aspects of my life and my personality that bring me joy and fulfillment. But what I would say is that as long as the world I inhabit continues to insist that I'm worth only 80 cents to the dollar compared to my male colleague, or that my entry into certain rooms is not permitted, or I am not allowed, I am allowed in the room, but I'm not able to sit at the table and contribute. Success will always feel tainted. So collectively, we have to accelerate action. There is no other alternative. We cannot leave half the population behind. That is a detriment to us, ourselves as a society, as a business structure, as an economy. To do otherwise is not just, it's just not an option. So I want to say thank you once again for having me speak. Thank you again to PMI for continuing to put this platform out there. And I really look forward to listening to the wonderful conversation that will soon ensue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cynthia, for such a powerful reflection. Sorry, because that have gone ahead of us. George is saying progress is not a responsibility of women alone. And that is so powerful because he not only says it, but he models it. We've seen George's leadership as the Africa team, and that we never feel like we're women as we collaborate in progressing Africa as the Africa team. But also the allyship that Cynthia refers to. It explains exactly that, the reflection of that, living it, modeling it, but also being an advocate for women in different platforms. Cynthia, you mentioned very bold statements. You talked about targets. You talked about, putting action to what we're saying. And that is powerful. And you also mentioned a lot of things. You said it starts with us. It starts with us, how we present ourselves and how we project ourselves as women leaders. You also mentioned a very powerful point around stereotyping and how that is a common thread across the board. How that stereotype that maybe project management is not a female, job, and that's why we still have a lot of representation from the male gender. George also reflected a lot on the PMI report, which was highlighting a number of things. But let me reflect on the staggering facts of the global research. 3 of them say, okay, and out of the 3, 2 maybe are not within our control. 1 is within the women's control. And today will be quite important on how we reflect as women on the role we also play in feeding the stereotype and just perpetuating the stereotype. So 1 says male project managers outnumber their female counterparts in every region and every sector. Let's ponder on that. In every region and in every sector. Women in project management earn less than men in every country surveyed, though the pay gap is slightly below the global average. The last one is for us to reflect and ponder on. Women are slightly less likely than men to hold a certification or a project management degree, which can affect career progression as well as salary potential. Let's ponder on that as well. As we reflect, let's take what is ours and let's take our ownership for what we can maybe have some, do we have control over some and what do we have control over others? So to start today's panel discussion, we have powerful women who are representing not only public sector, but also private sector. And they're coming from really hardcore, what we see or what we have seen as predominantly male-dominated industries. We have Angela Babalola, the Senior Manager for Consumer Operations in MTN Nigeria. We have Clara Inglis, who is the President of PMI Angola Chapter. We have BC Toro Popola, who is the Deputy Director and Head Enterprise for Portfolio Management Group at the Central Bank of Nigeria. We have Yone Lamfeya, the Executive Head for Capital Projects at MAST. Ladies, welcome to today's discussion. I hope your cameras will be on so that everyone can see your beautiful faces. Okay. So fantastic. So to kick off today, I think we'd be all keen to understand how did you get to this profession. Maybe let's start with you, Ionela, looking at the infrastructure projects, predominantly male engineering space. You're doing builds of infrastructure in the tech space. How did you find yourself in this environment? How did you end up in project management in infrastructure?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Phumza, for the opportunity, and thanks, PMI, for having us here today. And I hope it's going to be a very fruitful engagement and something that people can learn from. So mine has been a long journey. I come from a quantity surveying background. So I went into building residential, building commercial, institutional, facilities management, property management. And because of the vast experience that I have coming from different environments in the construction industry, I landed with capital projects or project management. And that's mainly from the experience that I've had of rolling out projects in different spheres. And the main reason I went into project management was so that I can elevate myself and to have engagement not only in the implementation, but also bring in project management from a strategic way of approaching projects. And that's the main reason that attracted me to go to the project management environment. Because we all know when you're coming from a technical background, you'll start perhaps being the implementer, going to the projects yourself, going from a project and going to a multi-project environment. And that's what I've done. And I've tied it up from a project management point of view and looking at it from a strategic projects level as I grow in my career. And I think project management is helpful in that you become a generalist instead of being a specialist within an environment, and that helps development and growth.
Great stuff. So to the audience, I do apologize. It looks like my camera is off, but it's actually on. I think it may be the network issues from my side. It's on. I'm just trying to sort out and fix what exactly is going on. Now, Angela,
We
off
can
to
see
you.
you now.
From you. Can you see me now? Okay,
Yes.
fantastic. I don't know what happened for a small while. Yeah. Angela, back to you. Tell us about the progression. So from when you started in a telecoms environment, what have you seen the progress being from when you started right up until now? Are you seeing a lot more progress in as far as the inclusion of women, or what has your journey been like?
Thanks, Phumza, and thanks so much everyone that's spoken so far for setting the pace perfectly. So from where I sit, I've actually seen a lot of progress. Fortunately for me, I had the opportunity of going to my current place of work very early during the course of my career. And it's actually an environment that encourages or deploys a lot of best or good practices. So on a general note, I would say that I'm one of the very opportune women out there who had the opportunity of working in a conducive environment where you're actually given an opportunity to express yourself and generally get out the best in you. So that has been my own story within my ecosystem.
I'd be quite keen to know, Angela, what contributes to that environment as it relating to what George has spoken about in terms of the culture, the environment, but also the allyship from men, because I think a lot of women would speak differently to your kind of experience.
Okay, so one key thing that I believe may have driven my environment is leadership. So when it comes to ensuring equitable treatment, it has always been a cultural thing within this ecosystem. So, and that culture has always been driven from the top. So, coming up or working or growing in an environment where there is a culture that encourages equal opportunity. So, and that's one of the reasons why my story will be slightly different, maybe from some other women. So it's an environment that encourages performance, whether you are male or you are female. So you are expected to bring your best to the table. And there are also deliberate initiatives put in place to encourage women. So for example, within my ecosystem, we are currently at a ratio of 41.3 to about 58.7, so ratio of men to women. And there are also deliberate steps and deliberate initiatives that the business has actually been putting in place to ensure that we have more women come to the table. And our ambition as an organization is that by 2030, we should have a 50-50, we should have a full equity between the male and the female. So for some of the initiatives that we currently have, the business has actually been deliberate about developing women. So we have programs. So for example, we have programs like the Women in Tech program. We have the Yellow Mom. We have the Future Leaders program. These are dedicated programs structured in such a way to empower women and position them for leadership opportunities. So for example, also within my environment, at least we've had 2 female CTOs in the last couple of years. And when you also look at the C-suite cadre, so currently we have about 6 women out of about 14 or 15 C-suite executives. So there are also deliberate steps in making sure that some roles to bridge that gender disparity. So women are specifically encouraged. Then when you also look at the employee value proposition, so you have things like women having the opportunity to have 6 months paid maternity leave, and you could also take additional 6 months as an unpaid. Then you have flexible work hours once you are back from maternity leave. You have pay parity. So in terms of pay, it is equal pay, whether you are female or whether you're male. And the business also is deliberate about making sure that that is measured on an annual basis to consistently bridge the gaps. Then in terms of actual recruitment, there are certain roles that are actually dedicated for women, but that is not to say that we encourage mediocrity. What we try to do is encourage women with equal competencies as men to effectively apply for those roles. And we are deliberate, and we are tracking. We are tracking on an annual basis. And like I did mention earlier, the ambition is to make sure that by 2030, we have equal number of females versus male. Then we also have the Yellow Mom program. So there's a whole lot of deliberate steps in making sure that, and of course, in terms of harassment, there's zero tolerance regarding any form of, harassment. So, so these are some of the initiatives that, within our own environment that has been put in place to ensure that women are well positioned.
Fantastic. So the way there is a will, there is a way. So there are many organizations that can actually mirror the strides that you've made from your side, Angela. Now I'd like to bring about the public sector voice, because we tend to find quite a bit of a disparity when it comes to the public and the private sector space. BC, coming from a public sector environment, what are the trends that you are starting to see in as far as the progression of women in public sector?
Again, hello, everybody. Very insightful comments I've heard from everybody out there. And my special hello to George, really, for your allyship. Your he for she has not gone unnoticed. So special welcome to you, and thank you for your ever increasing support. So yes, I talk from a public sector perspective. So I work for the Central Bank of Nigeria. And my journey has been actually before the Central Bank of Nigeria. I actually had the opportunity to work for for local government, even in the UK. So I worked for one of the largest local governments, Kent County Council in the United Kingdom. So we're talking about my career starting as far back as the 1990s. So for me, I had two ceilings to break. So I had the gender and I had the racial. So coming from that journey, I can say a lot of progress has been made. We've come to the point where we now have, at least we have written policies that ensure as much as possible gender equality. In the public sector, it's a bit different. You cannot have a male and a female doing the same job getting paid differently. So that is not even the issue for us. The issue mainly is looking at the strata of where people are within public sector, and I can talk for the central bank. Quite a lot of females in the Central Bank of Nigeria. We've had positive action, bearing in mind that the central bank actually sets the policies as a regulator for the entire financial space. It's very important to walk the talk as the leader. So for the Central Bank of Nigeria, we would also agree that financial empowerment is economic empowerment. So we are very intentional about ensuring there's financial inclusion. So we have a lot of policies around financial inclusion, around the gender gap in access to finance and all of that. But drilling it down, coming back to home now, for the banking sector, we have policies that say 30% should be at that C level. And I totally agree with you, Yanela, when you say 30% does not excite you. It doesn't excite me either. So I don't know why we're still sticking to the 30%, but even more importantly, where we're failing to achieve the 30%, what happens? There's no punitive measure, nothing happens. It's just a written policy. So it ticks some boxes, but there should be, like we say, we're accelerating action. So what do we do to ensure that even the minimum 30% is achieved? So in the Central Bank of Nigeria now, we do have a minimum of 30% at the level of director, which is a far cry from where we're coming from. But when you go to the next layer, we have 20%. We have one female in the COG. The COG for us is called the Committee of Governors. That's good, but I'm sure there's a lot more we can do as a central bank to lead by example so that the woman can get some form of parity. In project management stands, we have about 30%. That's the global average. We have about 30% females project managers. That is the ones involved in the strategic initiatives that shape the economy. We have about 30% of them at the moment. So it's been a long, long journey for me as a civil engineer. But when I compare the 1990s to where we are today, we have definitely come a long way with a lot more to do, but it's a positive trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bisi. I'm going to bring Clara. Clara, because you oversee, I mean, you are the chapter president and you've seen quite a number of women coming across as part of your community. So tell me a little bit, one of the stats and one of the research findings was that women are less likely to gain certifications. Tell us about what certifications have done for you in your personal kind of career trajectory and what you are seeing from women in the communities that you lead.
Thank you very much, Phumza. Good evening, ladies, and the majority of the ladies out there, and the gentlemen, of course. Project management is like the world of everything is possible. I found it's amazing how you can involve and develop yourself professionally in the project management. I'm a civil engineer as well. So we know that even though, like VC said, is the racial issue on the side, besides being a woman. So you have to struggle to evolve and find your own way and opportunities so that you can grow within men, mainly the main project managers. So what I found it in the project management in construction and infrastructure projects was that we women, we were more able to develop as a PMO. You see, all that integration and preparation, planning, and controlling, monitoring processes were more delegated to women. I started as a site supervisor, and I always were the point of control, working with the team. So in the majority of the team, when I came back to Angola, were English speakers. So I had the advantage of speaking English. So I was developing very fast within the company. And then I try as much as possible to bring another women's with me, because I understood that we could do very well integration in project management. And then I realized that I didn't just wanted to be a civil engineer and project management. I want to defend the causes of the sustainable development. Okay, so because I was very frustrated when we started to build water projects and find that women were having to travel more than 20 kilometers just to go and fetch water, to catch water. And they didn't have any opportunity to go to school because they had to take the kids with them, prepare the food, take care of the clothes, and they would never get access to proper education. So when I realized that if you can at least provide water near to the nearest point where can they have time to take care of their own family and their general activities at home, I was more and more involved with the Sustainable Development Objectives. So to try to help women to achieve more opportunities in the rural areas, even in our professional projects, me speaking and having a voice to defend what really projects means to us as women when we are trying to having a place on the table will make a difference. So there was a very interesting project that Angola had. This we call it the centralities. Okay, we were building cities all over the country, over 20,000 units housing. And I was part of the PMO's project. So we were focused mostly on the social equipments. How is the centrality going to favor the people, the quality of life and everything? And I had the opportunity to have a seat on the table and advocate for young girls, for young students, men and women, doesn't matter, and to try to bring to the table the awareness that most of the males on the table were not able to discuss. And that made a difference, actually. So I understood very well that there is opportunity for us as women. We don't have actually to fight, but we can at least grab the opportunity to be part of the decision makers and understand very well what a strategy is. In organization, most of us, we just want to be stable. We have to take care of our families and our own life, but never lose the opportunity to be part of the strategy. Try to have a seat on the table, discuss with whoever has to make the decision, and influence the soft skills of project manager to influence them to make the better decision for that impact actually who needs the most.
That's a powerful reflection, Clara, to understand what we're representing as we gain those seats around the table as project women. To also, it's not just about the project per se, but about the societal impact and bringing in a different eye of the different stakeholders that are not represented. So how do we get more women around the table? Because I think we have strides in certain corporates, there's disparities, BC, especially public sector, where policies are being made. How do we make sure that we create opportunities for having more women around the table?
Hey, thank you. Good question. Like you say, we say data is the new gold. But I also add to that the application of data is even the gold mine itself. So there is a case for all of this. We know what the data says. We need to develop these business cases. We need to, and that's what targets areas of improvement. When we can have the right data that is speaking to where the issues are. For instance, I wear a double hat because I'm in the strategy department of the bank. So I would be saying things like, all these policies you're churning out, have you done a gender impact assessment on them? Even your policies on recruitment, your policies on retention, even your policies on training and promotion. You would find in the past, you'd find a panel, 100% male panel sitting to interview people to go to the next level. So we should have, enough policies, data that can pinpoint where the issues are. This will aid targeted, intentional interventions. I would say that from a policy point of view and from a public sector point of view. And like I said earlier on, it's not enough to have all of this policies and strategies and data without the proper execution of them. So when we set key performance indicators, we need to be able to track them through to ensure they're filling this gap that these strategies have been designed to do. Without that, we will just have strategy or even projects just for the sake of them. So that's what I would say from a policy implementer point of view.
Fantastic. So basically, raising our voices more as advocates around the table, and also reflecting with data, supporting the impact of actually what we do and why we need more women around the table. So George mentioned a very important point to say the allyship of men is critical. But bringing it back to us, equally important is the allyship of other women. And in certain spaces, women are actually criticized for not being supportive of each other. How can we better foster these networks, opportunities, Yonela, the ecosystems? I think in PMI's perspective, we have a community. How do we leverage these communities to network better and to make sure that when we meet, we don't talk about the makeup only, but we talk about the next position that's available at the board, but we also talk about the next project that is big. Yonela, how do we leverage the networks?
I think some of the speakers were talking about being intentional and being deliberate when we network. I think just to give an example, I'm involved in another WERB where there is a forum for women, and we struggle to get women to participate because it's outside of your work day-to-day environment and all the different things that actually draw your attention as a woman, being a mother, being a professional, and all of that. We struggle to get people to participate and women to participate from a time management point of view. And I think there is a challenge that we have as women to participate when these opportunities arrive, when these organizations or networks and WERBs are created. Participation is key. So I commend PMI for having this and actually for having us in this panel. And for me, it was very important to participate because if we want to change, and we want these networks and we want these WERBs to be created, we must be the first people to step in and say, yes, I'll do it. And that's the most important thing. We are I find in my space of telecoms and TowerCo that we don't have an organized environment for women. And I'm part of a few women that we are putting that and are trying to put that together, but we struggle with participation. And I'm saying, and this is something I'm saying for everyone in the call, participate when you are exposed in organizations and in WERBs. The only way to make this better for us as women is to lift up your participation.
That's phenomenal, Yonela. I think what I'm hearing this year coming to the forefront is it's not about us only. I mean, we've lived through our journeys, our phases, and so on, but it's also about what is the baton that we hand over to the next generation. So, Angela, if there's a new impressionable Angela that is starting in the project management space, what toolkits could you give them to say that this is what I think is important for your acceleration within the project management space?
Thanks, Fonza, once again for that question. So for me, for a new entrant into project management space, I would say that define a clear objective for yourself, empower yourself. And empowerment is be open to learning, be willing to take on certification. You actually know where you want to be. So you draw up a roadmap for yourself, have an accountability partner, then track your success. Don't be scared of challenges, because those challenges, and don't be scared of challenges. Don't be scared of making mistakes. Any projects or any program you're given the opportunity to take on, bring your best foot forward, equip yourself with the right certifications. So depending on where the level at which you are operating in and your level of exposure. So there are several certifications that you can take, and depending on, where you really want to be. So we have, of course, we have the PMP, we have the CAPM, you have the risk management, you have courses provided by PMI around generative AI, because as a project manager and a project manager prepared for the future, depending on where you are operating from, there are certain level of competencies that you need to acquire. So aside the technical skills, showing interest in data science, and you could also, you can start with the basics, then you can scale up over time. Then you have things like, because the world is talking AI right now, so you also need to equip yourself around machine language. You need to take up courses in data science. So aside those technical competencies, there are also some soft skills that you require. So you need things around stakeholders management. You need competencies around being emotionally intelligent. You need competencies around being able to effectively communicate, problem solving, collaboration, and a host of others. But honestly, we have a lot of programs, a lot of tools within the PMI ecosystem that you can actually leverage on. It really does not matter where you're starting from. Just take those baby steps, and I can assure you, as you move on, the sky will be your beginning. Thank you.
Fantastic, Angela. So I think what you mentioned, one thing, AI is becoming the greatest equalizer for all of us, because it is that friend or that co-pilot. Or we also have now no excuse to say men have a golf course and they meet at the golf course and they exchange. You have an AI as a co-pilot now that can support you in terms of the knowledge that you can gain from that. How can women leverage AI to actually accelerate and help them to do better, to manage the multiple roles of mother, of nurturer, of wife, and everything else? Busy, let me hand over to you.
Going back to when I went to school, there probably was some form of artificial intelligence, but definitely not at the scale that it is today. So right now, I can use, like you mentioned, Copilot and all of them. I can use that even in project management to solve an issue that could have taken me a very long time to solve. And I'm talking about many, many man-woman hours. So artificial intelligence does not necessarily help you to think, because you must have built that basic knowledge, being able to have that basic skill to analyze. But once you have that basic knowledge, you no longer have to spend hours and hours even developing a template. So recently, I subjected my current templates to review, and I just put them on artificial intelligence, and bang, within a few seconds, artificial intelligence could tell me how much better I could be doing. And then it's my job to bring it into the context of what I want it to do. So yes, it's a veritable tool. I will push, support, promotes artificial intelligence. It makes life easier. It even makes life easier as mothers in our various roles and all of that, having to juggle the work-life balance. It just helps save a lot of time. I no longer have to spend 110 hours on a research paper. I can do that, surprisingly, maybe not, within minutes. So yes, it makes life easier. I would recommend the full adoption of artificial intelligence to help even in project management. Helps with tracking as
Fantastic.
well.
So, yes, PC?
Now, I was just going to say it
Okay.
helps with tracking as well. So I have several projects I am overseeing, and by a press of a button, artificial intelligence, I can see where everything is from one dashboard in front of me. That wasn't the case 20 years ago when I first became a project manager. So the world is evolving, and I'd say the women have to take it and evolve with it as well.
Fantastic. So I've looked at the questions and the answers. I think you've answered a lot of the questions. A lot of the questions were relating to people who are new to project management and they wanted to find out the steps. I think Angela did a fantastic job to do that. Just before we round up, ladies, if you were to give me 3 things that we need to do to shift the needle, because I think of concern as we walk away, despite all the celebrations and the strides that we've made, the question still remains. Representation is still a problem. I mean, there's been policy changes that came across this year that were quite shocking, and they may derail the progress that has been made. What do you think are the 3 things that you can do personally to actually progress the inclusion in your various spaces? Yonela, you can go for it.
Okay. So Pums, I think the one thing that I will say that just outside of myself is skills, and show to harness skills, continuous learning. And that's for me is the most important thing. There's a term that we use all the time in my organization, which is posturing. We need to learn as women to posture ourselves, understand where you want to participate and how you want to participate. And that's the most important thing, because as you skill yourself, then you skill towards that end goal. And that's how I change, and I try and change myself. I identify, I think Angela has said it before, I identify the goal, what you want to reach, and you make sure that you put steps in place to get to it. And that's the main thing. You don't sit in one position and be okay as a woman. And I think Clara has said that sometimes you just want to be there and work, but we actually have to continuously challenge ourselves to reach the next part of our journey. And that's what I'd like to say to everyone. And that's what keeps me going, is the next part that I want to participate in.
Fantastic. BC Public Sector, you are the woman there representing women. How do you gain traction? What are the 3 things that you will change personally to ensure inclusion?
Okay, I would just give a very brief personal experience I had. So when I worked in England in government, I joined a mentorship program, and I was very intentional about choosing who was going to be my mentor. So I chose the highest paid woman in the whole of the local authority. She became my mentor, and wow, did I learn a lot from her? I was meant to be on this graduate program for 2 years. From a mentorship, I came off that program in 2 months, got a senior position in the organization, and I never looked back from then. So in a nutshell, women must help women. Men can help women too, but look up to the best possible role model. She taught me so much that I still use today. So that's one. And we have mentorship programs even in the public sector. But be at the driver's seat. Be your own person. Put yourself out there and develop yourself, like I've heard all the other women say.
Thank you very much, BC. I know we're running a little bit over time, but I'm sure you don't want to miss out on these jewels. If you can just maybe entertain us for 3 minutes just to close off. Clara, your perspective, what will you do differently?
Hi, I think the ladies already talked about mentorship, and I was outlining the other day that this is very important. As long as there is a woman that can lead the way and show the path to the other ones, they can see how it is done, and this one always will intentionally prepare the others that are coming to be ready for the challenges. And PMI, for instance, we are already 60% members of the board. So if there is a woman progressing, of course, she will move forward with the other ones to support them. And we need that very much. I will agree as well that continuing professional development and study, we cannot sit and just wait things to happen. As we are seeing how the SDGs are not progressing as much until 2030, we need more project managers. And I believe women have a very important role on that to educate young girls and boys how to behave and be prepared for the future challenges and leadership that they need. I used to hear a lot of, from my mentor, that we are the women that are created men and other women. So we are very, very important to change the mindset to prepare these leaders of the future. And as we outlined it before as well, we need support. We need support from peer professional all over. If you are in a specific segment, try to find a community to support you. I'm a professional, a civil engineer. I go to the engineering community to get support. If I'm a member of the society, like in the church, get another women's support. And wherever you go, like in PMI, get as much as you can people to support your vision. Sit down and talk, not just makeup and dresses, but talk about projects, talk about strategies, talk how we want to move forward and make a better place in the world. That's what I think.
Thank you very much, Clara. Angela, your parting words, and then we will close off.
So for me, success is not by accident. So I'm encouraging all women out there to step up, stand out, and take your place. So in addition to what everyone else has said, we've talked a lot around mentorship. We also I'm focusing more around sponsorship. So also get for yourself a sponsor, someone who would always speak on your behalf whilst you are not there. And within our own ecosystem, there's also something that we are currently actively doing. And we have what is called the PMP Friday. So within that community, our job is to position and empower all participants to get certified. So at least last year, we achieved very good results. And the objective this year is also to achieve better results and continue to build on our community. And finally, I'd like to encourage everyone to be actively involved in all PMI programs. There are a lot of learning opportunities, the conferences. I mean, that has added a lot of value to me as an individual. Aside acquiring learning, taking new learnings, you also have the opportunity to network, because your network will also add a lot of value to your future career journey. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to thank you, all of you ladies. Very remarkable statements being made. I think just as a summation for tonight, the war's not over. It looks like there's a lot that we have to do, both from a societal perspective, as an ecosystem of women, but also individually in our spaces that we occupy. It's no longer about just us, but it's about other women as well. You know, the whole gender kind of community that we also need to impact. So please, ladies on the call, do not miss out on the Global Summit. The PMI Global Summit is coming up, the Summit Global Summit Series Africa. It will be hosted in Rwanda this year. We're hoping to see as many women as possible. And of course, we will have platforms where we're talking about women progress, and they'll be deliberating further on what we can do jointly as women. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And to George, thank you very much for also being part of our event tonight. To all the ladies, let the war continue. It's not a war, it's a movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Accelerated
Bye.
action.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.